Let's go to former Senator Heitkamp, who's with us now on the live line. Senator, thank you. Your thoughts on what we're witnessing and the way it's being handled.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone in this country could have watched the president-elect speech, Biden's, and then our current president's speech and not thought, my goodness, this calls for presidential leadership, not someone who stands up and tells anarchists that he loves them and that he shares their grief of a failed election. But please go home, pretty please. I mean, that's not leadership. That is beyond the pale, complicit behavior. And, what you just heard from the chief of police is the march happened right after the president's comments. I mean, so if you want proof that it incited this march to the Capitol and this siege on the Capitol, I don't think you have much different. You can look at it, Senator, and say, how could you come to any other conclusion?
I'm with you. These are the observations. These are the known knowns. These are the truths. Those things are all true. But what do we do now? Because then we have a real problem. We have millions and millions and millions of Americans who believe that the election was stolen. How do we fix this? How do we come together and move forward?
Well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to fulfill the constitutional obligation to basically read and certify the Electoral College vote. And I would call on Josh Hawley. I would call on Ted Cruz. I would call on every member who planned on, as Mitch McConnell said, this kind of harmless protest gesture. Now there's nothing harmless about this protest gesture. Call on them to stop the protest, certify the election, send a message not just to our country, but to the rest of the world that you cannot stop American democracy. And then we have to dig deep. And I come from a part of the country where 65 to 70% of the people support this president. And I imagine after this, it's going to be fewer people who are willing to say, I'm part of this effort or that this is rational behavior.
We'll see.
But we've got
Senator, we have a growing problem now. I got to show you something. There's a protest building outside the governor's mansion in St. Paul. Look at what's happening. This is Minnesota, where there's a protest building here. There's a Stop the Steal rally, which has began as a car parade and is now a march in Las Vegas. We have a national. We just witnessed the occupation of the Capitol of the United States, and we never had the president come out on a live camera to try to stop it. We have an enormous historical problem, unprecedented problem.
Well, I mean, I remember that, Shep, you might recall this when I said, that my fear was that a re-election of the president would lead to autocracy. I think you challenged me that night. And I would say, I think that what we're seeing right now is this sense that if things don't go your way under an election, that you somehow can take things into your own hands. And that's a failure of leadership, not just by the president, but by every person who has said, okay, we're gonna curry favor with his constituency, and we're gonna let Trump be Trump. And we had a congressman here in North Dakota who said, oh, that's what people like about him is how he talks. Well, how he talks leads to exactly this kind of behavior. And I think it's going to take all of us listening, not just dictating or getting mad about the other side, but listening to the other side and segregating. I think that the vice president, President-elect Biden, said, look, this is not the 60 or 74 million people. That's not who these folks are. They don't represent every Trump voter. Let's reach out to the other Trump voters. Let's make sure that we understand.
But part of the problem clearly is we have two examples. Ted Cruz, brilliant lawyer himself. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, in the president's ear, brilliant constitutional. They know all of this is false, and yet on they march. Who can convince those who support these lies that lead to these events? they have to be stopped as well.
Well, that's my point. My point is there has to be a level of accountability. And my call is to Ted Cruz. I tweeted this out. I said, all of you people wanted to protest the Electoral College. Now is the time to step up and say, you know what, it's not going to change the outcome. We can do what we need to in each one of these states to try and examine what happened with the election if you think something went wrong. But stand down.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.